In this lesson, we are going to examine how to add end caps to the two open tubes on the top of this fabrication. The two open tubes I am referring to are located here. There's the first one, and here for the second one. Before we begin, if you would like to work along with me, the model on the screen is called Workbench End Caps and can be found in your Working Files folder. This model is the workbench minus the end caps. Before we begin, I do need to mention the end cap command can only be applied to structural members with linear edges, like we see here. This basically means the end cap command will not work with round tubing. Let's go to the weldments ribbon and select end cap. The property manager opens, and in the first window, it prompts me for a face. I'm going to go out to the graphics area and select this top face. Notice we see a preview on the screen. Now let's go back to the property manager and take a look at other options available for this command. We have thickness direction. Currently, it's at outward, and that's why it's placing the end cap on the outward side of the structural member I selected. Another option is inward. If I select inward, it appears the end cap is placed inside of the square tubing. However, if I select the green check mark for the end cap, you will see the square tubing shorten by the thickness of the end cap. Let's go back and edit the end cap command. We have a third option, which is new in SOLIDWORKS 2015, and we'll cover this a little bit later. This is called internal. Let's go back to outward. Moving down the property manager, we can specify the thickness of the end cap. It's currently at 5 millimeters, and we see that 5 millimeters here in the preview. Right below this, we have offset. Notice we have two options here, thickness ratio, offset value, and then we have a value of 0.5. It's currently set to a ratio of the thickness at 0.5. So if we go out to the screen, notice the thickness of the square tubing. The end cap is offset half of the thickness of the square tubing. This value here can be anywhere between 0 and 1. So if I change it to 0, notice how the preview updates. There's no offset, and the end cap extends to the outside of the square tubing. If I change the value to 1, notice the end cap is now to the inside of the square tubing. And I also have the option of reversing the direction. Now the 1 is to the outside of the square tubing. Let's return this to the inside. The other option is offset value. This allows you to specify an offset distance. The 3 millimeters you see here is offsetting the end cap 3 millimeters from the outside edge of the square tubing. If I change this to 1 millimeter, you'll see the preview update, and now we have 1 millimeter to the outside edge of the square tubing. Right below this, we have corner treatment. We have two options for corner treatment, chamfer and fillet. If I put a check mark here, notice fillet is selected with a 3 millimeter radius, and that's what we're seeing in the preview. Now let's take a look at this new option in SOLIDWORKS 2015, internal. Internal allows you to add an end cap inside of the structural member. Right below this, we can specify the thickness of the end cap and then an inset distance. Currently, it's at 0 millimeters. If I change this to 10 and we watch the preview, notice the end cap is now inset 10 millimeters. We also have the options of offset and corner treatment. Now I am going to show you if we flip the offset direction, and let's bump this value up a little bit and roll the model. You will see it creates the end cap to the outside of the square tubing. Now if I go ahead and close out of the end cap command by selecting the green check mark, you'll see it does not trim the square tubing back. So that's something that you need to be aware of. So this is how we apply end caps to structural members in the weldment environment.